Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Russell with Beit Tehila Congregation. I am so excited to have with me today Avi Lipkin, who is a longtime friend and to my family and as well to Beit Tehila and the community. He is a true pioneer in the Judeo-Christian relationships. You know, he has just been a huge advocate for us, the Christians, coming back to the land in a good way where we serve the Jewish people and also to build relationships with them. You know, Avi's been working with the Israeli government. He's been on lots of national and international programs as a topic expert. His son, Aaron Lipkin, who is an awesome man of God, is also our tour guide for us here at Beit Tehila and for several other groups as well. He owns Lipkin Travels, and he's just been a great friend to us. And so without further ado, Avi, we just want to welcome you here today. Thank you for joining us online. We were hoping to have you here with us just recently due to the circumstances going on in Israel. We were unable to have you come join us just because you're taking care of obviously the home front. But we didn't want to miss out on an opportunity to have you come and speak and share, give us your insights. And so, Avi, thank you so much for being with us again here today. And I'm going to turn this over to you to kind of share your heart with us, with the community here at Beit Tehila, and kind of what the Lord's been doing out there in the land of Israel. So without further ado, Avi Lipkin.
Thank you, Pastor Russell. Good to be with you. Good to be with Beit Tehila. And I would say, you know, I'm very angry with Hamas in Gaza because of them, I'm not now in Florida with you guys. And I really, really wanted to be with you guys. And I had 2-month trip already planned, 20 invitations to very important churches. And everything had to get postponed. But everything is in God's will. And like I said before, I would be going crazy now if I were in the States and away from my wife and my family and from Israel. I'd probably be banging on the doors of El Al to get back on the next plane. So I suppose it's good. God's timing is perfect, and God kept me home. I was supposed to come to the States on the 18th of October and be in Beit Tehila on the 22nd. And this war started on October 7th, so that was 11 days before. And immediately, you know, I said to my wife, well, it looks like you're stuck with me for the duration of the war. And one of the things I will probably talk about is, will this war expand into Lebanon with Hezbollah? Will this war expand into Iran? Because that is also a possibility. Or will Israel be forced by the U.S. government and France and England and Germany and the UN to call a ceasefire and humanitarian relief and basically disappoint the Israeli public that was promised that this would be the last war with Hamas, that we would not erase them. So the Israeli people are very gung-ho. And of course, there are 224 hostages in the hands of Hamas. We hope they are still alive, and we hope they will come home safely. But the PR in the Israeli media is almost entirely about the hostages. And, you know, we're talking about Israel's very existence. We're not talking just about 224 hostages, but they are using the hostages to force Israel to postpone the ground offensive, which is what Israel has to do. One little point, this is going to be a very, very rambling lecture. I'm going to be going from different subjects to different subjects and coming back again. Last night, and actually the night before, we were told in the news this morning that the Israeli military actually launched a probing attack into the northern part of Gaza. We go in with our tanks, we go in with our engineering unit, and areas that we've bombed, areas which are now pretty much empty. And we go in and we basically make sure that there are no IEDs, that there are no anti-tank rockets or booby traps set up. And it's a very, very professional thing. The Israeli army goes in, not, like a herd of elephants. They go in, like really checking every piece of ground that we are moving into. And then by morning, all the Israeli troops pull out and go back into Israel. So that we've done this for 2 nights. One of the things that we are told, or we're not really told, but we're guessing, is that the Hamas are trying to prevent 350,000 Gaza Arabs from fleeing the northern part of Gaza to the south. We've promised them, and we keep our promises. We will not kill intentionally innocent Palestinian Gazans. But the problem is when they try to go south of Gaza City, the Hamas guards shoot them. The Hamas guards are physically preventing the Gaza residents from saving their lives. In other words, the Gaza Hamas terrorists are using them as body shields, what they consider to protect the Hamas. And so I think what's happening is, we don't talk about it, but we are liquidating individuals who are trying to block the road going south so that the people can get out. It's also one of the reasons that the Israeli government is not starting the ground operation yet. In other words, to give more time. We don't want to kill innocent civilians. We want the civilians who are not identified with this nonsense to get out of there and go south of Gaza, actually to the Khan Yunis area, where refugee camps are being set up with tents so that people who escape from the city of Gaza can go into these tents. And there they have the humanitarian food and water that they need to survive. We are not there to eliminate 2 million Arabs. We are there to liquidate 50,000 terrorists. Once you get rid of the terrorists, then you go to the next stage, which is hopefully some kind of a new administration which will not launch rockets at Israel. And you have to remember, we have been forced many times to go into Gaza because they're launching missiles, in spite of their promises in 2006 and 2007 not to launch missiles. Former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon said, we're pulling out of Gaza. No conditions are set other than they should just not fire rockets at us. And obviously they didn't keep their word. At first it was the PLO. Then PLO was overthrown by Hamas. And Hamas is constantly shooting rockets since 2007. So this is something that obviously the Israeli public cannot tolerate. I have to add another thing, that the kibbutz population surrounding Gaza said, we're not going back to our homes in the kibbutz until we know that Hamas is gone. We're not going to go back to our homes and then have them launch rockets at us again, because it's in their nature to launch rockets. What has happened now is because of Hezbollah on the northern border, also firing rockets and also threatening our civilian population. The civilian people in the north of Israel saying, we've been evacuated, we're in hotels, we're not going home until, Hezbollah is destroyed. So Hamas and Hezbollah have to be eliminated. We have nothing against Lebanese people. The Lebanese are great people. Lebanon should have been the second country to recognize Israel. But Lebanon is under the heel of the Hezbollah. So we have here two contradicting realities. We have the reality of Israel's defense needs being met versus the world's pushing for a ceasefire that will mean that Hamas remains and Hezbollah remains, and we are going to have an explosion within the Israeli population if we don't do the right thing this time. So this is basically the situation on the ground right now. We can go into other aspects. If you have questions at any time, interrupt me, ask a question. Otherwise, I'll just blabber. I have about 10 hours I can share with you if you want. And but there's a lot of things there. You might even call it prophecy. But what I try to do is say, well, I'm not a prophet. I just listen to my wife. My wife is the prophetess. You know, and everybody in church knows that my wife was an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government, radio and TV. And whether I like it or not, she's always lecturing to me about how much I don't know, and she's teaching me. So it's true. She's been teaching me. You know, we had our 51st anniversary in June, and so I'm praying she'll allow me to live another 6 months till 52nd anniversary. And 52nd, yeah. And, you know, she cooks and cooks and cooks, and then asks me why I'm so fat, you know, that she's a good cook. You can ask Tikva. Tikva came to our house with Tim. We had a wonderful time. And we love them very much. We love all of you very much. And I feel kind of like an idiot looking into a camera to talk to you instead of being with you guys and enjoying the Olive Garden there and Brandon and enjoying everything that Brandon has to offer me. And I love being with you. And one day soon, hopefully, I just hope that this thing gets finished. You know, people are talking about months and perhaps a year until this war is over. So we definitely need your prayers. I would even venture to say, you know, I'm not begging, but, you know, we need sustenance also in order to keep the fort down because, you know, I'm 75 and I'm living on Social Security. And you tell me who can live on Social Security. But by the way, I wanted to add something very important. As you know, I created the Judeo-Christian Bible Block Party. It was registered on May 15th, Israel's Independence Day, 2018. We have already run in 5 elections. Now, the problem here, this is not really a problem, but it's really kicking me in the butt. I wrote my book about the Bible Block Party in 2006. And the book is totally out of date. And so my son Aaron keeps saying, Daddy, your book is out of date. You got to redo it. So I'm constantly sitting on the computer, you know, updating and revising and expanding the book. And I'm approaching the end. But just as I was about to get on the plane and come to the States, the war broke out. So can you imagine if I went to the publisher and I gave them the book and then the war was not there in the book? So I'm already going over things that I revised and I'm adding new things based on what's happening now with the war. And very interesting. One of the interesting things is that the ultra-Orthodox yeshiva students, many of them are leaving their studies and they're going into the army. We have at this point 3,000 ultra-Orthodox Haredi candidates who have registered for the army. 200 have already been mobilized, and they're being mobilized for different things that they're good at. And so, you know, for me, it made me very happy that the ultra-Orthodox are shouldering or beginning to shoulder their military responsibilities as well. So it's bringing unity to the country. And one of the things I wanted to share, which is very important, I was at church with you guys, I think in March. And ever since Netanyahu formed his government in November, a year ago, there have been attempts, I hate to use the word coup d'etat, but there have been attempts to overthrow Netanyahu, go against the will of the majority of the people, and force Netanyahu out of office. And the worst enemy of Netanyahu is Ehud Barak, a socialist who was former prime minister. Complete idiot. I think he's mentally retarded. But Ehud Barak was even saying, what we need is a small but smart army. So what did he do? He chopped the army up and made it small, but instead of being small and smart, it became small and stupid. As a result of becoming small and stupid, the Gaza Hamas attacked us and we didn't even see it coming. Why? There's one word, concept. And just as in the Yom Kippur War, we suffered from a concept that Egypt and Syria would never dare to attack us, and then all the relevant information was ignored. So now it turns out that there was a lot of information regarding the 7th of October sneak attack, and the military, who are all socialists, by the way. You cannot become a general in the Israeli army if you are like Avi Lipkin, who is right-wing Likud. All the top generals above colonel are socialists. So now what they're trying to do is pin the blame on Netanyahu when it was the generals who kept the information from him. Netanyahu did not have a clue that this was about to happen because his advice that he got from the socialist generals was, don't worry, they will never attack. And this is exactly the same mistake that was made in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War. And we paid 1,400 dead people. This was the worst day in Jewish history since the Holocaust. And like I said earlier, there are 224 people still hostages. The whole country's mobilized. So financially, the country is not in a very good situation at this time. And, it's not the first time Israel is at war. We have not really known peace for the last 100 years in this part of the world. And so it's very, very important that God stand by us, and that we stand by God, and that the Christians stand by Israel, because Israel belongs to the Christians as well. And if the Jews and Christians don't work together, I don't want to say anything bad, but there's a saying I always use: either the Jews and Christians hang together or we hang separately. And so anyway, this is part. I can share more if you want, but meanwhile, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask a few questions.
It's interesting, and I know you know a lot about prophecy, a lot about the Word of God. And, it's interesting that they started this war 50 years to the day on Simchat Torah, when we're supposed to be celebrating God's Word and celebrating the commands of God. They would try to disrupt and harm the people of Israel during that day, 50 years from the war. Can you share your thoughts on about what that meant to you, 50 years to the day, the symbolicness of that, and what you believe is kind of behind the reason why they picked that day specifically?
Okay. Firstly, I want to say something which I know is going to get me into a lot of trouble, because after you finish preparing the interview in its final stage, and I start broadcasting it, I know it's going to get picked up in the mainline media here, and I'm going to be a pariah, which I am already, but that's okay. When you're a pariah in the name of God, you're okay. The Hamas terrorists were not planning to attack us on Simchat Torah. They were planning to attack us at some time later in conjunction with Hezbollah and Iran. In other words, it was going to be three different militaries attacking Israel all at the same time. And what happened was, Hamas heard that there was going to be a big shindig. There was this, they call it a peace festival, a music festival, right on the Gaza border. And there were hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of young kids there, boys and girls. And forgive me, God, for saying things that I'm going to say. A lot of these kids came to smoke pot, take drugs, get drunk. And when was it? Not only was it Simchat Torah, it was Shabbat. And in my value system, God is not happy when Jews do not keep the Shabbat. And I have to tell you, I've been living in Israel 55 years. Every Sunday in the early news, they give a list of all the people who were killed in traffic accidents, Friday night and Saturday. People who were killed on Yom Kippur driving. And, I'm not God. I'm just a human being. We're all going to die one day. But I think God gave us certain commandments. And if these people and these who came to the peace festival, and these people who live in the kibbutzim, who, by the way, are pro-Gaza, they're pro-Palestinians, they're pro-Muslim, the very same socialists that blocked Netanyahu from getting the truth about what was really happening in Gaza. And the same people who were fighting the whole time, I don't know if you remember the protests in Tel Aviv, the protests throughout the land of Israel. These are hardcore, hardline communists or socialists. These were the people who went to this festival. You did not find religious Jews there, because religious Jews are going to be home on Shabbat. And it's painful for me to have to pass a value judgment. I am not a rabbi. I'm not anyone of any importance in the Jewish rabbinic world. But I say this is punishment from God for those people who are doing all these bad things, breaking the Shabbat and taking drugs and protesting the streets of Tel Aviv and attacking Netanyahu. Israel was on the verge of a civil war. And our former Prime Minister Ehud Barak was constantly talking about blood in the streets of Tel Aviv. Blood in the Yarkon River, which is just, in the northern part of Tel Aviv. In other words, former Prime Minister Ehud Barak was inciting to a civil war so that the military would take over and the military would carry out a coup d'etat and eliminate Netanyahu. And so I believe, you're talking about prophecy, I believe that God used this attack by Gaza, as far as horrible as it is. And you know what? The people of Israel today are so united. And a lot of these left-wing people now, they finally came to understand the nature of the beast. Islam is a beast. And, I got a 3-year jail sentence, which I'm very proud of, in Switzerland, for saying that Islam is not a religion. It is a criminal psychosis based on a God called Allah al-Ilahi, Allah, the moon god, the war god, the sword god. I've spoken about this a dozen times in your church. And I have to tell you something. You know who doesn't listen to me? The Jews. The only people who listen to me are Christians, because my message fits in with the Christian, prophecy. It's not Christian, it's Jewish prophecy, but Jews don't want to hear about prophecy. I'm very sad that I had to say this. We are still, now they're attacking Netanyahu. Why didn't he know? He didn't know because he did what his advisors told him. His advisors were military who were appointed by the socialists. You do not have one right-wing general in the Israeli army. You cannot become anything higher than a colonel in the Israeli army if you are Likud. I was fired from the prime minister's office in 1990 because I was Likud. I was supposed to get tenure. They said, we know your political views, you're fired. And we will put lies in your file so that nobody will ever hire you again. And that's what they did. And they were right. 33 years, I haven't been able to get a job in Israel. You know who gave me a job? You guys gave me a job. When I go to Christian churches, you know what? I feel like Joseph in Egypt. Joseph was kicked out of the land of Israel by his brethren. I was kicked out of the land by my brethren. But praise God, there's El Al, and so I can go back and forth whenever I want. I have 2 passports, as I think it was Paul who said, the Apostle Paul, in Rome I'm a Roman, and in Jerusalem I'm a Jew, I'm an Israeli. So at least till war breaks out. If war breaks out, I got to stay home. And so I have my pistol, and I asked for an M16. I was in artillery 16 years. They said, oh, no, we can't give you an M16 because you are 75. And insurance for M16 is only until age 60. So I'm sitting here like an idiot with a pistol, Beretta in my hand, and my wife is cooking, and I'm eating and watching TV. I'm enjoying life. What can I do? This is like Patton saying, I live for this,
That's great. Avi, you are on the front lines and defending your nation. And, I think you could hold 2 F6. You could have both machine guns in both hands. You'd be like Rambo. I know God would give you the strength. And it is interesting how you brought up, something about the arms, right? So initially, when we saw all the terrorism start happening here in the land in the land of Israel, we just actually had a mass murder this week. 21 people died yesterday up in Maine. So we're just seeing the violence break out, right? But one of the things that we kind of expected to see is the Israeli people more well armed, the people in the surrounding neighborhoods, right? Because everybody serves in the IDF at least 2 years. We were thinking they're probably not going to get through the first neighborhood. Everyone's armed with their rifles and handguns and stuff like that. But it sounds like they don't really have. It wasn't like that when they initially attacked. Now it looks like they're giving you guys the firearms you need to defend yourself. Can you tell me why Israel at the time when they were attacking, they didn't have more preparation? I know in America, the liberal there's a lot of different groups out there that are trying to push gun control. But do you see that in Israel anymore? Do you see them going to be less with that and letting Israel keep more guns in their homes for situations kind of like this?
Well, take my son Aaron. Praise God, he has Lipkin tours, his tour company. And we go to some pretty crazy places, let me tell you, here in Israel. And so he has his pistol, and I have my pistol. Listen, a pistol is good for 50 yards. You know, you have 10 bullets in the clip. And, you know, when you have an M16, you know, you have, I think, 20 or 27 bullets in a clip. My son was just issued now an M16 because he's not over 60. You know, he's 48. He's in the emergency squad. So now he has his pistol and he has his M16. My grandson, Eviatar, who you guys met, he's in the Tel HaShomer mobilization area. He has a pistol because anybody who travels in Judea and Samaria has to have a pistol because you don't know if they're going to ambush you in any specific place. Now, Aaron's younger son, Dror, is in the Air Force ROTC here in Israel. He's 18. They would not allow you to have a pistol if you were under 22. It had to be after the army. But they liberalized that. Now he has a pistol. And they're handing out M16s like to everybody, except for people like me who are old, 75. So, you know, I say to everybody, I'm here doing patrol duty in my house, going from room to room, looking out the window all the time. I'm nuts, you know. And then I come back to the computer and I do Zoom shows with you and with other people, and I work on my book. I mean, I'm not bored at all. If I get bored, I go down. We have 4 Israeli news stations. I go from one to the other all the time. Very depressing, actually, but at least I'm on the cutting edge there. And actually, if there were to be a human wave attack on Kedar, on my settlement, we would be notified because we have helicopters up in the air all the time with heat sensors. So they, even at night, they know if there are terrorists approaching our settlement. And, you know, we have a very determined bunch of people. Our settlement is comprised also of a lot of police officers and army people.
Awesome.
So anyway, listen, Doris Day, you know, Kesara, Sera, whatever will be. I mean, it's not like Florida, but I'm very happy to be home. And indeed, the gun control laws here were very socialist, very Democrat Party style, that if you lived in Tel Aviv, you couldn't have a gun. Unless you were a policeman or you had a guard duty type job. Now they're giving everybody who volunteers, you know, for the self-defense squads, the civil defense, they're giving everybody guns.
Yes. The verse that came to mind was in Zechariah. In Zechariah 12:3-4, it says, God will make Jerusalem like an intoxicating drink that makes the nearby nations stagger when they send armies besieged against Israel and Jerusalem. And on that day, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock, and all nations will try to move against it, but they will only hurt themselves. And it's interesting how, you know, each time Israel has had a nation come after them, whether it's Iran or Egypt or so on, that God has kept Israel solid in their faith and in their movement. And so it's so good to hear that you guys are standing up and being ready for that. And one of the things that's interesting is the support of Israel in the world, right? So here in America, we've had kind of a mixed, interesting enough, we've had kind of a mixed outcry. Some people siding with Israel, some not siding with Israel. And I wanted to kind of get your take on this too, because obviously the Judeo-Christian church, you know, we support Israel, we love Israel. And the U.S. government seems to be in line with that support. However, there's been others like the Squad and others that have come against Israel. Obviously, they're not really understanding the situation, obviously, because they thought the hospital blew up and it never blew up, right? But the idea here is how can we as Judeo-Christians, as believers, support Israel during this season of time? What can we do to be an asset and a support for you guys who are on the front lines there in Israel?
Well, obviously, the first thing is pray for Israel. The second thing is, and don't get angry with me, you or your followers watching this program, but I say this in church all the time. One of the problems in America is that the agenda of the American government, Republican or Democrat, is to dumb down the people, not to teach the people the Bible, and as a result, not to teach the people the values of right versus wrong. And my second book, I've written 7 books until now. My second book is called Christian Revival for Israel's Survival. I think I left a whole bunch of merchandise in my car, and which you are taking. graciously taken care of. But there I talk about, this is a book I wrote in 1999, and it was talking about information I had from the 1980s about Duke University. But this is not about Duke University only. This is all the universities in America. My wife, Rachel, who worked for the Israeli intelligence, picked up a broadcast 30 years ago where the Muslims, the Saudis, were saying, even if it takes us 150 years, we will make America a Muslim country. Then when she left her job a few years ago, the same Saudi station was saying, we were wrong. We thought that we would take America and make it Muslim in 150 years. We were wrong. It's only going to take us another 30 years. Why is it only going to take another 30 years? Two reasons. First, the immigration, hijra. A lot of this immigration is illegal, coming across the southern borders. But there's also a lot of legal immigration. How do they get into the States? The universities, like Duke University, my book talks about Duke University in the 1980s, gets a grant of $23 million. No strings attached. And the Sultan of Brunei comes, it says, if you establish an Islamic and Arabic studies chair, we will give you another $23 million. Now you tell me, what's the university going to do? It's going to say, no, we thank you, have a good day. No, they're going to take the money. And then the Sultan of Brunei says, in addition to the 46 million you're getting now, we're going to send you 500 young male Muslim students every year to study at your university. They will pay full room, board, and tuition. Now that's a lot of money. 500 male students every year. Now what happens? Boys will be boys. And so these Muslim boys are allowed to marry Christian women, not vice versa. You know, Muslim women cannot be touched. They are guarded. That's the word used in the Quran. But Muslim men can marry Christian women. What happens when you marry an American woman? After 2 years, she has a passport, you have a passport. Once these Muslim boys have passports, they can bring in their families. It's called chain immigration. President Trump spoke about that. Chain immigration. All this is legal. And all of a sudden, you have 500 students a year. After 4 years, you have 400 freshmen, or 500 freshmen, 500 sophomores, 500 juniors, and 500 seniors. 2,000 young male students, Muslim students at Duke University, who then go and marry American girls who don't have a clue what they're getting themselves into. Multiply that by 1,000 universities. Simple mathematics. 500 times 1,000 is 500,000. Now, many of them go back to their countries, but 500,000 a year, and this is from the 1980s. So it's ridiculous when people say that there are only 2 million Muslims in America or 4 million Muslims in America. I say that there are 20 to 30 million Muslims and they're under the radar. Nobody is allowed to touch them. Nobody is allowed to mention them. There's even a very famous Jewish radio talk show host. He won't have me anymore because I said that there were 20 million Muslims in America. He said, no, there are only 2 million. I can't have you on my show. You're not reliable. You're exaggerating. I said, I'm not exaggerating because the black Muslims, you know, of Louis Farrakhan have 4 million. They've said it officially. 400 million black Muslims who are going to kill the Jews very soon. Then you have 9 million Shia, 9 million Sunnis. I mean, right there you have 22 million Muslims in America. I think there are more. And they are under the radar. So they do it through immigration. They do it through bribery of the colleges. And if you're following the anti-Semitism in America's colleges today, this was manufactured by Islam. This was engineered by Islam. Because Americans, they don't care about Israel being for or against. So these anti-Israel, anti-Semitic demonstrations are engineered by Islamic money. And I think also, you probably remember, one of the first things I ever said at Beit Tehila was about a meeting I had with the One World Government. I was invited to speak to the One World Government in Dallas. And they said to me, Israel would be sacrificed for a barrel of oil because, you know, we won't let the Jews get in the way of our oil supplies. I said, we never got in the way of your oil supplies. In World War II, we lost 6 million of our Jews. But the point was, these people, their God is Mammon. You cannot serve the Lord and serve Mammon. The Muslims have the Mammon, So forget about God. Everybody forgets about God. And if the Jews are God's people, forget about the Jews, forget about God. And if the Christians are grafted into the Jews, Romans 15, then you forget about the Christians as well. This is a battle against Christian America also. And so I don't know. You asked me, what can Christians do? Number one is pray. Another thing is be active. Another thing is get educated about what's really going on in the Middle East. And it's one of the reasons why I'm very, very proud and very happy that you're hosting me on this Zoom program. And I pray to God that this thing will be over sometime soon so I can come back and drive you all crazy when I come.
Well, we would love to have you back here real soon too. You know, it's interesting. You gave us a lot of background information, and I think some people who are brand new to our community never had that privilege of hearing you share about, you know, kind of where Israel was sacrificed for the barrel of oil and a lot of the history that comes behind the scenes from Israel, and why there's such a hesitation in the American government to go and be more hardline against, you know, the Palestinian, the Hamas, because of this the situation with the economics, right? They're serving mammon, and it's interesting because even in our society today, that's probably the biggest issue right now is we have a God that we serve, and that's mammon here in America. We've been so blessed for so long with the economic good times. Now it seems to be that the economic system is kind of slowing. Interest rates are up and so on. But I want to go back to kind of what you were sharing about earlier, Avi, which is great, is you shared earlier that they're trying to push a ceasefire right now. They're trying to keep Israel kind of at bay and say, okay, Israel, you know, you've done a lot right now. You've been bombing, you've been doing all the different things that you have been with Hamas, but now it's time for us to kind of, you know, ease off of that instead of taking back the land there. What's your take on that? Do you think Israel's going to go to a ceasefire at some point, or do you think they're just going to go all the way through and make sure it's cleared out so that there's safety again in the land of Israel? What's your thoughts?
Okay, well, you know, I've told you I've been in Israel 55 years, plus or minus my time in the States, which is a lot, which I thank God for because I love America. But in the Yom Kippur War, in which, again, we were taken by surprise, we were out of bullets after a few days. And President Nixon, who was very much maligned by the media, Republican, right-wing, patriot, Nixon approved an airlift to Israel of much-needed armaments, tanks, planes. You know, the Soviets shot down our planes. They destroyed our tanks with anti-tank missiles. We had a victory at the end of the Yom Kippur War, but it cost us 2,500 soldiers' lives, and we would have gone bankrupt, and we would not have succeeded like we did without American military support. So now we've been in this war 20 days. President Biden, to his credit, has sent us a lot of rearmaments. If we do not declare a ceasefire, okay, this is not Avi Lipkin speaking, this is what the world is saying, then Hezbollah will attack. And if Hezbollah attacks, Iran will attack. And guess what? We don't have enough bullets. When I say bullets, I mean all the armaments. So we are in a tight bind, and we do not, you know, President Biden kept saying, I have your back, I have your back, and don't, and don't, and don't. You know, when he says don't, and don't, and don't, you know what I think of? Afghanistan. The crazy, crazy withdrawal from Afghanistan. And you know what? The United States is back in Iraq and Syria again, fighting ISIS. I mean, Islam is a satanic, psychotic cult. Allah is the devil. And you know what? You know, I have to tell you a little story. I don't know if I should tell you, but I'm always telling you stuff I shouldn't be telling you.
Please, brother, go ahead.
My commander in the Israeli army, I spent 16 years in artillery, but my commander in the last 14 years was army spokesman. She's the sweetest woman in the world. You know, like I would say I'm madly in love with her, but I'm not madly in love with her. I just love her very much, you know, agape type love, you know. And she called me a few days ago, and she said to me, this is not a military call-up, but, you know, if you want to volunteer, we're putting together a staff of people who will do PR work for the state of Israel. And I answered her, I'm ready. I'll come right now if you tell me to. But I respect you and love you so much, I said to her, I have to warn you. Anybody who checks up Dennis Avi Lipkin in the computer is going to find a guy who says that Allah is Satan and Islam is a criminal psychosis. And you are going to be attacked virulently by everybody because all the people she works with are globalists and socialists in the Israeli government. And I said, I don't want you to have that problem. But if you tell me to come, I'll still come. She didn't call me back.
Interesting.
So there is a very clear religious problem. This is a war between God and Satan. And just like we did not want this war, we did not plan for this war. We were taken by surprise. It was an evil thing. But you know what? God did it. You cannot deny, if God is in control of everything, that God brought about a war, number one, that united the people of Israel. Number two, knocked some sense out of us, or shall I say, knocked some crap out of us. And we are here now bombing remorselessly certain civilian areas after we told the civilians to get out. 700,000 Gaza Arabs have left the north part of the Gaza Strip. That's half the population almost, and they're in the south now. Hamas won't let the others out, the 300,000. They won't let them out. So we are now eliminating the Hamas people who are preventing them by sending every night, we send in military incursions into the north of Gaza with tanks, with, heavy vehicles, removing the mines, military engineering. We're going in, we're literally purifying the area of all the booby traps and things that they would leave for us there. And by dawn, we pull out of those areas. And then the next day we go into the next area, we do the same. So it's basically a softening up of the positions before and if and when the Israeli government says, okay, now we do the ground operation.
Very good.
One of the things the Gaza terrorists do, they have a tall, high-story building. We know this because of our intelligence. We have a high-story building, and on the 8th floor of the building, there's the family. They're innocent, but they have Hamas soldiers there with anti-tank rockets up on the 8th floor, and any Israeli tank that drives by will be shot at by these anti-tank rockets. So what do? We call everybody on the phone to get out of the building. We're going to blow it up, and we blow up the building. So they're not going to use that building to shoot at our tanks. So all the destruction you see is because Hamas uses the civilians who are innocent as human shields. This is crazy. They're totally demonic. Terrible, terrible, terrible. You know what? And I have to say another thing, which I shouldn't say. Everything I'm saying, I shouldn't say. Most of our Air Force pilots are socialists. They have gone through the political filter. And a lot of these pilots were saying, before the war broke out, we are reconsidering whether we should ever serve again in the Israeli Air Force because of Netanyahu. Because Netanyahu and the Likud government was trying to improve the judicial system with a reform, and no, the socialists don't want any change in the reform because they lose the power. In other words, it'll be 50-50 like in America. They want all the judges to be socialists. They want all the top pilots to be socialists, all the top generals to be socialist. Everything in Israel is based on if you are a socialist. I mean, I enjoy Beit Tehila, but I'd really like to be a general in the Israeli army or a member of Knesset, or maybe one day I'll be a member of Knesset if I get enough Jews and Christians to support what I'm doing.
Yes, and that's the Bible Block party that you have started, and that actually goes back many, many years. I remember when you were sharing with that with my family back in the 90s. You were talking about starting a Bible Block party or some party, and it's exciting to see it come to fruition. It is interesting that this is kind of a war of two fronts, right? You have the war that's in the physical, and then you have the war that's in the spiritual. Tell us a little bit about, for those that are new, that don't understand, why is there such a conflict? A lot of people turn on their news, they just do a drive-by newsreel. But tell us kind of what you believe is really the key issues here, where there's just been this conflict for many, many years.
Okay, well, you have to understand the Israeli elites are grandchildren of communists and socialists who came here 100 years ago. From 1920, Israel has been totally controlled by communists and socialists. And even when Likud comes to power, they're not in power. They have to do what the socialists tell them to do. They cannot override socialist control. The judges are socialists, generals in the army, the police, commanders, foreign ministry. You know what? I have to tell you a funny story. I once went to the Israeli foreign ministry to offer my services. And I went for an interview. I told them about myself. And I said, you know, that I work with the Christian evangelicals, the ones who love Israel. And they said, no. I'm going to say this with a Jewish Israeli accent. We don't want you. We only want the authentic Israelis from the kibbutz. The authentic Israelis from the kibbutz. I said to her, listen, authentic Israelis from the kibbutz are socialists. My evangelicals don't want socialists. My evangelicals want a Jew with a kippah on his head who believes in God and agrees with the Christians. You guys don't agree with the Christians. Why? Because the Christian evangelicals say, hey, God gave you the land. You shouldn't be giving it up. And so the foreign ministry, controlled by the socialists, immediately showed me the door. And don't let it slam on your way out. And you know what? I have to tell you something. God is my boss. One of my problems is that I can't tell a lie. When I get up in the pulpit, I can only tell the truth because God is telling me tell the truth. It's against my nature to lie. It's not because I'm religious. I can't lie. When I tell my wife the truth, I turn colors. So I don't know how to lie. So when you don't know how to lie, you cannot keep a job. When you tell anyone who's with you what's on your mind, that's it. You cannot keep the job. Unless you're a preacher. If you're a preacher, God puts the words in your mouth. And if people don't like it, what do? You shake the dust off your shoes and you go to the next city. And my whole life, the last 33 years, has been going around from one city to another in the United States. But fortunately, the same churches always want me back. So all I can say is the Israeli foreign ministry is socialist. They don't have a clue. The army to this day doesn't have a clue. And what I'm afraid of is after the war, when the war is over, and we have to have an accounting of really what happened, I don't know if then the military is going to cook up some kind of a deal to overthrow Netanyahu and establish a socialist dictatorship. But it's all Soviet.
And that brings up a good question, right? With the government right now, obviously Netanyahu is having a hard time. They've had so many elections just in the last few years in Israel, just holding a party together. Tell me about the unification of the government now that this has taken place, this war on Israel. Has there been a real uniting of all fronts to basically get rid of the terrorists, obviously, but just to come back to the core values of what made Israel and get back in line with what they believe as the roots of their beliefs?
I believe absolutely yes. In other words, as black as the cloud was, it has a tremendous silver lining. And the very fact that the ultra-Orthodox, whom I was attacking all the time for not joining the army, just sitting and studying Torah all day, I didn't accept it. And now you see thousands of ultra-Orthodox yeshiva students saying, we're putting on the military uniform and we'll do whatever the army tells us to do. This is a tremendous blessing to the state of Israel. It is unifying the religious and the right. The religious and the right today are not 64 out of 120. They're at least 74. Because some of the people who left Netanyahu and left the Likud and formed opposition parties, they're right-wing people or religious people. And another thing also, the socialists have maybe 1 or 2 children per family if they get married. And the religious and the nationalists have 4 or 5, 10 children per family. So the socialists, the left, are going crazy because every election they lose points. So it's like their death throes, the socialist death throes. When Netanyahu says we're going to make reform in the judiciary system, it can't be that all the judges are socialists. You cannot get a right-wing judge in the courts or in the Supreme Court. You have right-wing judges, but they're overlooked. Also, Jews who are Sephardic Spanish background. They don't let the Sephardic Jews in. I think there's one Arab and one Sephardic judge in the whole court system, the high court system. So there has to be a change. It has to be built in a better way. So we're going to see where this all goes. But all of this is after the war.
Mm-hmm. It is good that you brought that up, because I think that's been kind of the weakness, the Achilles heel of the Israeli government, really making some changes, some major changes in their policies, and also taking back, parts of the land of Gaza. Do you think that the outcome of this will be the cry that we should take back and have more control over the Gaza Strip and the other parts of the land of Israel? Now that this has taken place, they're like, we can't let this happen again twice. Lord forbid. Would you believe that the Israel government's going to have more of a reason now to be more hardline and saying we need that land back? We're not need, that is our land, but taking back the control of that land and being more in authority over that Pacific area?
You know what? You know the story of Aladdin and the golden lamp? You rub the golden lamp. Israel's wish would be never to step foot in Gaza again, and that they should have a democratic government, and that they shouldn't fire missiles at us. We do not want Gaza. We were in there, and it's a sewer. I did army patrol in Gaza. It's a sewer. They don't have sewer systems. So they flush our toilet, it goes into the street. It's crazy. You don't want to go to Gaza. And every time we turn our backs, we get rockets fired at us. In other words, they are forcing us to defend ourselves every time. We wish that, people are saying, oh, when Israel pulls out, Gaza will come like Singapore. And Gaza has the potential for it. They have a beautiful seacoast. Theoretically, they have unlimited water supplies if they do desalination, electricity. Everything can be done if they seek peace. But if they seek to curse Israel, you know what? I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. So we have absolutely zero desire to occupy Gaza. So what we probably are going to try to do is eliminate Hamas and put together some kind of an international, I don't want to say UN because the UN is totally corrupt, but have some kind of an international occupation of Gaza and let the Israelis pull out. All the school books have to be changed. If you ask me, all the mosques have to be shut down. Do you know that all these mosques are armories? They have guns and dynamite, and all these mosques. You blow up the mosques, they have secondary and tertiary explosions because they have all their bombs underneath the mosque. Crazy.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just new news, right? This has been going on for quite some time. Israel has always had to defend itself, and always had to be on guard. It's never really ever stopped being on guard. And obviously right now they're on guard from two war fronts. They're talking about how there could be an invasion, from the north. There could be different entities trying to take advantage of the situation. What's your thoughts on Israel right now fighting two war fronts? I mean, is it possible for them to be able to defend themselves? Or I'm sorry, three war fronts. You're correct. Three war fronts.
The West Bank, actually it's four, because the West Bank, Judea, Samaria is one front. And then now the missiles are being fired at us from Syria. And so that's a fourth war front. The only thing lacking is the outright war with Hezbollah and then missiles from Iran. Iran has been saying that if we don't stop bombarding Gaza, they're going to start firing missiles from Iran at Israel.
And one of the things that's interesting is that the financial part of this was one that I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on as well. So obviously, there's been some controversy now. People are talking about how Biden has funded part of this whole invasion because of the money that he gave to Iran. What was your thoughts on the financial part of this when they were giving out money to that? Was that part of they thought they could take advantage of the situation now that they had some funding? They could go after Israel now because they weren't going to have so many financial obligations to hold them back. What's your thoughts on the financial front of this war and Israel facing off against Iran?
Okay, well, firstly, $6 billion is very nice pocket money, but the Iranians received over $100 billion from sales of oil. And I heard something today in the news, which is very interesting. you remember COVID? I bet you remember COVID. Do you know all these flights that were canceled in America and in Western Europe? Flights were canceled because of COVID. And do you know that not one flight was canceled between Iran and China? With all the COVID and everything, flights were back and forth, back and forth. Iran and Russia provide a lot of money to Iran. Don't forget, Iran sells its drones to Russia to attack Ukraine. And, you know, I have to tell you, I did 2 interviews last week with Newsmax. I love Newsmax. I enjoyed very much my interviews. I think they won't have me anymore. Because as a Sovietologist, I was saying that Biden is doing the right thing with Iran, because if Iran gets taken out, that's another peg in the Russian stool. In other words, a stool has 3 pegs or 4 pegs. Iran is one of the pegs. China is another peg. North Korea is another peg. If the people of Iran, and they're good people, the Iranians, if we can remove that Ayatollah regime and give them democracy, they're not going to sell drones to Russia anymore. Russia's going to go nuts. This is a world war, whether we want to call a spade or not. This is Russia, China, Iran, North Korea against Ukraine, Israel, and the U.S. And that's what Biden said. I agree with that. So Newsmax won't have me because I said perhaps something nice about Biden, you know. But I will say something else bad about Biden to make all the anti-Biden people happy. I have an email. I could read the email to you. It would take about half an hour. But the United States has spent $2 billion in intelligence gathering in Egypt. And you might have heard that a top Egyptian officer told the Israeli military about the attack the day before. And nobody would listen to him. Now, if the Egyptian commander knew, the American intelligence gathering in Egypt knew. The president knew. And this is kind of like Yom Kippur War, where the United States, which thinks that a 2-state solution is a good idea, wanted to see Israel humbled, even if it cost us 1,400 lives and a war. And so the first thing I want to say is, anybody who thinks, this is also going to get me into a lot of trouble, anyone who thinks there will ever be a Palestinian state is totally psychotic, living in castles in the air. There will never be a Palestinian state. Why? Because Allah is Satan and Islam is a criminal psychosis. They don't even want a state. They just want to kill the Jews on Saturday and the Christians on Sunday. Duh! I mean, what don't people understand? And you know what my worst enemies are? The Israeli government. Because the Israeli government is socialist, in spite of Netanyahu. And Netanyahu is a good guy. He's the best prime minister we've ever had. But all the people in the foreign ministry, they hate me. Nobody's calling me. The only people who call me, you know, are good Christian evangelicals from the United States like you. Who, by the way, I think are Jewish anyway. But, you know, that'll get me now in trouble with all those hooty-tooty, you know, Christians who think, oh, we're better than the Jews and everything. No, you're the same crap as we are. But God loves us in spite of all our failings.
Mm. And you're so right. You know, news, and I wanted to kind of bring that up. So a lot of people are getting news from so many different sources. Obviously, your wife, she's an intelligence officer for the IDF. You know, what is the best places today to get the news that you believe is closer to the truth? Obviously, we don't promote a lot of the other major networks, and we're not promoting a particular network, but where are some places that you think would be a good resource for people to go online, find information about what's happening in Israel, and kind of stay up to date on what's happening?
Okay, listen, don't get angry with me, but we get Fox News here. I love Fox News. Okay, so they're Northeastern Catholics. I don't care. I love Fox News. And you know what? This whole last week, my wife and I have been watching, and their coverage of the war is fantastic. So Fox News, watch Fox News. I don't know what Newsmax is doing now. I hope they have me back. but I haven't heard anything from them in the last since my 2 interviews with them. They were supposed to do another show with me. I did once a show with One America News, OAN. They're good. Listen, there are a lot of very good internet sources. You know what? I make you a deal. Anybody who wants to write to me to vicmore2001@yahoo.com to my email, ask them to write to me. I will forward them the kind of news services, Jewish and Christian, that I receive every day. And you have to know something. This is very tiring because I hear the same news over and over again from Jewish and Christian websites, but it reconfirms. I cross-reference. Cross-reference means you don't just rely on one source. I even read Newsweek and I read CNN and I read everybody. And, report the news. Don't make up the news. And then I tell you what I think God is telling me to say. But have people write to vicmore2001@yahoo. And I have to tell you something. I was put in Facebook jail. And I thought it was hacked. She said, no, it's Facebook jail. Because there were all these Palestinian and Muslim websites saying crazy things. And I would answer them. And then one day, all of a sudden, they said, we see suspicious activity on your Facebook Messenger. So, So I didn't have Facebook Messenger for 10 days. Finally, a lady said to me, let me help you. We'll see what we can do. Turns out I was put in Facebook jail because I was responding to what the Palestinians and the Muslims were saying. Facebook seems to be not a friend of Israel.
Yeah, it seems like that for a lot of the major news outlets. I mean, even when Elon Musk took over Twitter, he saw the situation where they were basically, isolating certain comments and certain people and not allowing them to have the vocal front that they need. But you know what? You have a friend here in America. Beit Tehila loves you guys and Israel, and you have a friend here, and we just love you so much in your family, your sons and your whole family there, and your grandkids. And I guess just kind of in closing here, just kind of give you the platform here at the end. Is there anything that we should be preparing for the future? Is there anything that we need to be, obviously you've always had a great pulse on what's happening in the world. What should we as believers and as Americans be ready for in the coming future? And what should we be thinking about right now?
How much time do I have?
As much as you want, brother.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm saying this is because when I was in Florida, I think 2 years ago, a lady calls me. One of my, I hate to use the word groupies, but she's, always calling me and everything. She says, there's this guy who wants to meet you. He's a militia guy. I said, okay, I work with the militias. I work with the Tea Parties. I work with the Republicans. I work with everybody who invites me. Democrats will never invite me. Whoever invites me, I go. So I went to have lunch with this militia guy. And he asks me about George Floyd. And what do you think about his death? I said, well, I think it was horrible. I think if he was a criminal, he should be in jail, but he shouldn't be killed by those 4 cops. No, he nodded. They said, what do you think about defund the police? I said, well, I think it's horrible. If you defund your police, you're going to have killing and crime and chaos. And he shook his head, no. He said, no, you don't understand, he said to me. Before the killing of George Floyd, we were 3 million militia members in America. After the killing of George Floyd and defund the police, we're not 3 million, we're 30 million militia members in America now. And the first thing we're going to do, he said, is kill the Jews. So I have already been reporting on this since 1999 that the Muslims have a plan to kill the Jews. The neo-Nazis have a plan to kill the Jews. Black Lives Matter has a plan to kill the Jews. Antifa has a plan to kill the Jews. We are facing a Holocaust. And because 6 million Jews in America are married to 4 million Christians, whoever kills the Jew is going to kill the Christian spouses as well. So you want prophecy? I'll conclude the prophecy. I believe America will always come out on top. But I believe there is a very strong possibility or probability of chaos in America. And Jews are going to be slaughtered. I don't want it to happen. By the way, I sent a letter to the president of Israel, Yitzhak Herzog. I said, it's going to be a Holocaust in America. And he thanked me. A few weeks later, before I came to the States, there was a report that Israel has an emergency absorption plan for 500,000 Jews from America. So somebody's listening. So many Jews and Christian spouses. Don't forget, 80% intermarriage with Christians in America. You know, we hate you and you hate us till we get married. And so there are 60 million Jews, 4 million Christians who are prospective aliyah potential. And this means we will have the population to settle all the land that God has intended us to have, if you get the gist. It's in the prophecies. And it's in our time. And the Bible Block Party will be the biggest party in the Knesset one day. Man. If my wife doesn't kill me, I'll be the prime minister.
Well, I'll tell you, you will. We would love to have you as the Prime Minister of Israel. I know you have defended Israel and its borders, and been a huge advocate for the nation of Israel. One of the things that we fight against today is disinformation, right? We fight against people that are trying to spread rumors and gossip and try to promote their own ideology and agenda. And it's great to have you here, who has been just on the front lines in Israel, giving us the correct information, and also warning Israel, or warning America about what happened in Israel could happen here. Like I mentioned earlier in the time here, we had just a mass shooting just the day before here in Maine. And it's incredible that, you know, this information isn't more shocking. You know, we're just kind of getting used to it, kind of absorbing all of this negative news, and we've been absorbing it for so long that it doesn't even become a shocker anymore that, you know, this stuff happens. So again, we want to support you. We want to support your family in the land of Israel, and we're definitely going to be supporting you in every way we possibly can. And you left us with some good notes to do, which is to, you know, basically be in prayer. You know, be in prayer about what's going to happen in the future here with the land of Israel, and to pray for Israel. You also said to be active, to be also, you know, learning, growing, not just sitting on the sidelines and just, you know, letting things come about. You did say there was 3, and I didn't get the third one. What is the third one on your list there that we should be doing for Israel during this season of time?
Well, I would say get as close as you can to Israel while you're in America, and then eventually come to Israel. When I say get close to Israel, be all these Israeli functions and, you know, pro-Israel, pro-Zionist functions, and keep the gunpowder dry, because you may be having to defend Christian America. And, you know, I'll tell you the truth, I would be ready to come to America and die for Christian America if I were called. Because Jewish Israel needs Christian America. There are no two ways about it. And by the way, make sure people get my website, biblicalalliance.com. And if people write to me, I will write back. And if people write to me and ask for websites, I will send them back different websites.
Amen. Absolutely. And, you know, for those of us in the live audience here that are here at Beit Tehila, we do have resources in our bookstore outside that you can get with Avi Lipkin's materials. And you definitely can reach out to him. We'll leave the website here on the video, as well in the description for people to get a hold of you. And Avi, again, just a blessing to have you with us here today. Thank you so much for your time. Your wife and you and your whole family have been a huge blessing to us here, and to many others surrounding it. And thank you for taking the call and to be like a prophet, traveling all over, sharing the news. So thank you for your. You've been doing this for how long? How long have you been doing this?
33 years. But 33 years. I wanted to offer again. We can do these periodic updates on Zoom and get the message out, even once a week or more if you want.
Awesome. Well, definitely we have to circle back to that, because, you know, people need to know what's happening, and you are a huge resource and a wealth of knowledge. So again, I'm going to say goodbye to the live audience here. We're going to go ahead and finish here and turn this back over to the host here at the church. But again, thank you, Avi, so much for being here with us today. We appreciate you so much, and your wife, and we just wish you the very best, and shalom.
God bless you, and God save America.